Hello, this is Mr. Netzker. I am going to walk you guys through with some ideas on how you guys can approach your writing responses to your coming up exam. And first, it's important that we probably go over the instructions. So, in your journals or on a separate piece of paper, you're going to demonstrate your knowledge of the below concepts in handwriting, not cursive, to each of the following writing prompts. You should aim to demonstrate your responses in at least 5 to 8 sentences per paragraph. You may use diagrams and bubble / mental maps in your illustrations, but you need to explain your concepts in words also. This drives home the idea that if you cannot write it or say it, you don't know it. And this is much more efficient and better for you guys than just giving you guys a multiple choice exam, which doesn't demonstrate a whole lot. All right, here's your rubric. To get a 4 on your responses, you need to demonstrate concept in precise detail in about 5 to 8 sentences or more. You drew excellent graphics, diagrams, and mental maps about the concept. A 3 would be that you demonstrated the concept in detail, but you did it in fewer sentences, about 4 to 5 sentences. You did draw some graphics, some diagrams, and mental maps about the concept. If you got a 2, you did demonstrate the concept in some detail, and you relied mostly on your graphics or your images instead of words. And you wrote fewer than 4 sentences, and you did not explain the concept sufficiently. And 1 is you demonstrated little or limited information, little to no sentences, and limited or no graphics explaining your main ideas. So this is what we're going to use to grade you guys. Alright, so now let's go ahead and take a look at your first question. Your first question is 1. Latitude and longitude correspond to what theme of world geography? What ideas are associated with important lines of latitude? And what ideas are associated with lines of longitude? So this very important concept that you guys have already been exposed to is a theme that's a part of one of the 5 themes of world geography. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write latitude. Now I write in caps because I do not write the neatest. So here's our first idea we're going to look at is latitude. What things can we come up about latitude? If you guys recall, it's part of one of the themes of world geography, and that is absolute location. And we use that along with longitude in the way we categorize the world. And latitude's important in that. For example, and we could go ahead and draw the world over here. Let's make this canvas size better. Okay. And recall this very important line of latitude, which separates the northern and southern hemispheres, is the equator. And this happens at 0 degrees latitude. This next important line of latitude is your Tropic of Cancer. And one of the things that helps me remember this is I just think about how everyone is focused on Cancer here in the States. 23.5 degrees north is that line of latitude. So everyone's mindful of Cancer, so it makes it easy for me to think of that northern important line of latitude. The southern one is the Tropic of Capricorn. And that is 23.5 degrees south. And then further down here, this next important line of latitude in the southern hemisphere is the Antarctic Circle. at 66.5 degrees south. And of course the one up here is the Arctic Circle. At 66.5 degrees north. And of course the world does not go beyond 90 degrees north, nor does it go beyond 90 degrees south. Now, a very important idea to take away from this is that lines of latitude equal climate zones. So we can make some generalizations when we look at these lines of latitude. So most of the year, let's draw a sun. The sun's radiation, we'll draw a sun right here. The sun's radiation is hitting the Tropic of Cancer, right, let's draw the sun. It's hitting the equator, and it's hitting the Tropic of Capricorn, right? So here it's about 6 months a year out of the year. Here it's 3 months of the year during our winter months. And here it's 3 months out of the year for our summer months. And so this is where most of the sun's radiation is hitting the Earth. So we should be able to make some basic generalizations about this. And those generalizations you can make is that here in the low latitudes, these are your low latitudes, is that we have these two climate zones of tropical wet we also have tropical wet and dry. And that's for both of these areas. I'm just going to put TW for tropical wet, and then TW for tropical wet, and tropical wet, and D for dry. So these areas of the world have those two climate zones. There's another generalization we can make about the next line of important line of latitude, which is these temperate. This is our mid latitudes. Mid. And if you're in the northern hemisphere, we have a lot more land than in the southern hemisphere. So you would not exactly come to the same conclusions because you have more oceans and less land in the southern hemisphere. But the generalization we can make in the northern hemisphere is that we have humid, continental, and humid subtropical. If you're curious to know what the climate zone of China is, all you have to do is step outside if you're in Texas, Houston, Texas, and then you guys realize that we share the same climate zones. All right, and also we have continentality is another thing that we have up here. So those are some ideas that are very general that we can make with latitude systems, and of course with a little basic knowledge, knowing that there's more land in the northern hemisphere than there is in the southern hemisphere. So we can't make the same generalizations in the southern hemisphere, though we do have some areas with humid continental and Mediterranean, humid subtropical. Alright, now the further away from the equator, you should be noticing the climate zones are getting cooler. So further away from the mid latitudes, we have the high latitudes. And here you have bitterly freezing cold climate zones. We have ice caps at the coldest areas. We also have tundra, and we also have subarctic climate zones. Now, what's another thing you can tell me about latitudes? Well, they do measure your absolute location north or south. So with that basic information, you should be able to construct at least 5 to 7 sentences just about latitude, explaining its correlation between climate zones and the important lines of latitude, and its theme that it belongs to, and one of the 5 themes of world geography, which is absolute location, and it's used to measure our degrees north and south in our world. Let's take a look at important lines of longitude. Alright, let's take a look at important lines of longitude. Longitude, also an important theme of world geography. And another important thing you take away is that for every 15 degrees of longitude equals 1 hour in time zones. So if you recall, we have this important line of longitude that goes through Greenwich, England, at 0 degrees, and then for every 15 degrees, and these lines converge at the poles, for every 15 degrees of longitude, we get 1 hour. So if it's midnight in England, if you go 15 degrees of longitude east, and if you're in Paris, it's going to be 1 a.m. in the morning. And likewise. And then another important line of longitude that we have is the international date line. If you cross it from China going towards Los Angeles, you lose a day. If you cross from Los Angeles going to China, you gain a day. Now, another important thing to keep in mind is that the world is a sphere. So I just drew a 3-dimensional picture on a 2-dimensional surface. So in reality, if you took this prime meridian, we should write that, prime meridian. Your lines of longitude are also called meridians. It's your prime meridian. Sorry, it's very sloppy. I'm getting used to using this tool. If you stayed on this line, the prime meridian, to the other side of the world, you would actually be on this international date line. But because I'm putting a 3-dimensional object on a 2-dimensional surface, we have distortion. So this is a misrepresentation of the way things really are. So what's important right now is just you getting the ideas, the basic ideas of the longitude. And of course, longitude measures your distance east and west. That's a very important idea. Likewise, lines of latitude measure distance north and south. So with that information, you should easily be able to write 5 to 7 sentences, and even use these graphics if you wanted to, if you need help for brainstorming as you're writing your essays.